This is the 9th or the 10th debate. And what I've been watching here, this back and forth, and these attacks, some of them are personal. I think we're fixing to lose the election to Hillary Clinton if we don't stop this. I mean, the fact is, you know what I would suggest? Why don't we just take all the negative ads and all the negative comments down from television and let us just talk about what we're for, and let's sell that, and the Republican Party will be stronger as a result.
Ohio Governor John Kasich addressing the intra-party squabbling during last Saturday's South Carolina debate. Kasich is polling around 4th place in surveys in South Carolina, but will his approach to this effort give him the momentum for a strong finish and what he needs to stay in the race? For more, let's welcome in two gents from Washington, D.C. First, from Newsmax Washington, my former colleague in the Congress, Pete Hoekstra, the Shillman Senior Fellow at the Investigative Project on Terrorism. And Pete is the author of Architects of Disaster, The Destruction of Libya. Likewise, joining us from Washington, D.C. via Skype, another of my congressional colleagues, senior advisor to Kasich's campaign, and the former Congressman from the great state of Pennsylvania, Bob Walker. If you don't know by now, both Bob and Pete are Kasich supporters. We're concentrating on John's campaign right now. And Bob, let me first go to you. Kasich has taken a very different approach, not directly attack people. Is he selling optimism? And what else is the approach that you think will work for John?
Well, I think that what he's decided is that positively telling his story is his strongest suit. The fact is that if you look at his history, he's done the things that he said he would do, like balancing the budget in Washington, like turning Ohio around, creating jobs, bringing actually jobs back from other countries, balancing the budget there and creating a surplus. The fact is he's a guy who has a record of doing what he says he will do. And I think he thinks that just sells, and so far it has.
So, Pete, as we pointed out, you and Bob and I all served with John Kasich in Congress. What do you believe is the unique quality Kasich brings to this race that would work for him in the presidency?
Actually getting things done. John's a real conservative, but he's a conservative that's delivered. As Bob said, you know, he drove the message and he drove the tactics and the strategy to balance the budget in Washington. He led the effort to reform welfare. He led the effort to, to cut taxes and to grow the economy. This is a guy that is a conservative, but is a proven conservative. It's one thing to be in Congress and just talk and say things that, get you high approval ratings and those types of things and give you a great speech. John Kasich has actually taken conservative principles, put them into practice, put them into law, and created an environment in Washington and in Ohio where people have been successful. So it's bringing those two together, experience and results, along with conservative values, and demonstrating, hey, we can get things done. And under that kind of philosophy, Ohio will be successful and America will be successful.
Well, all three of us worked with him in Congress when he was chairman of the Budget Committee and got the budget balanced, and we took those votes and we're happy to do so. But to attract votes in South Carolina, Bob Walker, you know what's interesting? On the campaign trail in New Hampshire, John joked that he really ought to be in the Democrat primary. He said it was a joke. He's been described as the Democrats' favorite Republican. Given the dynamics of the open primary in South Carolina, will this actually work to his advantage in the Palmetto State on Saturday?
Well, I think you need to know that the reason why he made that joke was because the woman said to him that she was a Democrat, would like to vote for him, and he joked with her and so on. But we all know how conservative John Kasich is, and he wouldn't be comfortable at all in the Democratic Party. But he does believe that there are people in our society who, as we advance prosperity, are people who sometimes get left behind. And he believes that everybody should be given a chance to get opportunities. And that's what he's done again in Ohio, is he has designed programs that assure that people get a lift up rather than constantly pushed down. So I think those are things that sell not only in Ohio, but in places like South Carolina.
Now, we've got the scene from the New Hampshire primary that evening, that special Tuesday night, where John finished second. Let's listen to what Governor Kasich had to say on that night.
we never went negative because we have more good to sell than to spend our time being critical of somebody else.
Now, I got to tell you, as a guy, I represented Arizona in the Congress, but I worked for 5 years in South Carolina. And Pete Hoekstra, South Carolinians kind of expect sharp elbows. But is this unbridled optimism and this, quote, gentle conservatism really going to sell for John in the Palmetto State?
Well, it really should, because whereas John is positive all the time, you and I have been in the room with him when he's negotiating and trying to get to a deal, trying to balance the budget, and that's tough. And when John's got to throw elbows around to move an agenda forward, moving a conservative agenda forward, he can throw the elbows around as well as anybody, but he'll do it behind the scenes, because he recognizes that when he wins this battle, there are more battles to be fought in the future, so he's not going to make long-term enemies. That's the great thing. When John's the nominee, all the other people that are on the stage that have been in this primary process, they won't have a problem endorsing John Kasich, because he's never been negative to them.
Fair enough. Pete Hoekstra, Newsmax Washington, Bob Walker, elsewhere in the nation's capital. Gentlemen, we appreciate it and your advocacy for John Kasich. Now, want to make a note to you watching. On this program, we will bring you the perspectives of advocates for each of the respective Republican candidates in this race. Heck, before things are over, we'll probably try to get a hold of the Democrats as well. There is more ahead, specifically our political panel, so stay tuned.